Okay, Dana, no more stress at home, I said. Me too, she said. Never again, I promise. What a load of crap, I said, hanging up the phone. I couldn't believe she thought I'd fall for that work stress crap. She really thinks I'm stupid. The phone rang again. I was about to tell Dana what I thought since I was so angry with her, but it wasn't her. Why aren't you at work? Gianna asked. Hearing her voice made me feel better. I'm depressed, I said. I explained everything to her and told her where I was. Okay, that's not why I called, she said sharply. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to drive you to despair by talking about my ruined life, I said. You're not humoring me, she said, and I'm willing to listen to anything you want to talk about. I'm just afraid that if we start telling each other our problems all the time, we'll become friends. Oh, I said, suddenly feeling worse. I thought we were already friends. Oh, hell no, she snapped suddenly. Get that thought out of your head immediately. Well, I'm going to let you go, I said sadly. I don't want to waste your time. I called you, Luke, she reminded me. I wanted to ask you about our second date. What second date? I asked. I thought, Luke, you never want to be a girl's friend, and I don't want you to think of me as your friend, she said seriously. When I got divorced, I had a lot of friends, most of them were women, but there were a few guys too. A lot of my friends called to make me feel better about my divorce, even guys called me. The problem is that once you get into the friend zone, it's very hard to change your status. I never once thought about entertaining any of the guys I considered friends. I don't want you to think of me as a friend, okay? I'm confused, I said. What? Don't worry about it, she smiled. I'll deal with it. You're still in shock. I'm just trying to make sure that in a few weeks, when you're really ready to move on, I'll be first in line. What line? I asked. You work for a relatively large company, correct? She asked. I said yes. That means that when the news of your divorce gets out, there will be a lot of women after you, and they'll all be standing behind me, she smirked. John, if you're in line, there won't be a line, I said. I'm not stupid enough to let you go. Oh, finally some flattery. Now that I know you're interested, let's talk about a second date, she said. I'm torn, you know. Torn about what? I asked. I was still totally confused. No wonder women think we don't understand everything. Well, a second date is a little early for a romantic cross-dressing date, but it's perfect for another fun little get-to-know-you date. The big decision is, do we bring Sasha along? She asked. Because I know she likes me, but we're supposed to have our first kiss goodnight after our second date, and I'm not sure she likes me that much. Seeing some woman press her lips against your father's can be uncomfortable. Are you planning on pressing your lips against me? I wheezed. The tightness in my pants made me very glad I was in the office alone. Definitely, she laughed. After all, we have to follow protocol. It was all I could do not to kiss you at Pizza Hut. And when is that going to happen? I asked. This woman had a way of making me forget everything that was going on in my life except for her. The sooner the better, she said. How about tomorrow afternoon after practice? I'll make a picnic lunch, and the four of us can have a picnic right in the park. When everyone goes home, we can even roast marshmallows. Which four are you talking about? I asked. You, me, Sasha, and her best friend, Beth, she smirked. That way, Sasha will have someone to hang out with while we talk. Okay, I said, hoping my head would stop spinning. See you later. Bye, she said. That bye emphasized the nasality of her voice and accent. If all country girls were like her. I wondered why anyone ever left the South. Picking Sasha up from school, I looked around the parking lot but didn't see Gianna's Jeep. She's not here, Dad, Sasha laughed. She had to go shopping, and you and I know why. I looked at Sasha, she was smiling. I guessed she was okay. When we got home, Dana was in the kitchen making dinner. Sasha and I looked at her like she was an alien. Why are you looking at me like that? She asked. We didn't know you could cook, Sasha said. Why are you home? I asked. I just decided not to work overtime today, Dana smiled. I just wanted to spend some time with my family. When are they coming? Sasha asked. I'm busy today. I have a lot of homework. I'm going to take some pictures of the car with the new chin spoiler and maybe get out on the roads around the airport where there isn't a lot of traffic and try it out, I said. Sasha walked to the kitchen and grabbed a couple of slices of the pizza we'd brought the other day. She heated them up in the microwave while Dana watched her. See you later, Dad, Sasha said, retiring to her room. I was left standing there alone with Dana. I've been thinking, she said, smiling at me. What do you think about having another baby? It was one of the hardest things I've ever done, but I managed to keep a straight face. I didn't laugh in her face, and I didn't throw up or vomit. Now, I'm going to get my camera and take pictures, I said. What about my idea? She whined. I wanted to start working on it as soon as possible. I'll think about it, I said and headed for the exit of the house. I took about 50 pictures of the car from different angles with my digital camera. I had shots of the car in all stages of its development, from stock condition to the present. I hated to leave my daughter alone with Dana, but I really needed to get out of there. As I drove down the road, I didn't know whether to laugh or cry. There were only two reasons for Dana to suddenly become so enamored: either she was really trying to save our marriage, or she was trying to dump more of her crap on me. If she was really trying to save our marriage, should I have at least given her a chance to try? Then came the sudden urge to get pregnant again. Was this another tactic to save our marriage? She somehow suspected that I knew about her affair and thought that getting pregnant again would keep me from leaving her. Cheating, or there was something even worse behind it. Maybe she was already pregnant with his child and was trying to get me to entertain her so she could then claim the baby was mine. That was another reason I wasn't going to have sex with her. Then, of course, came the guilt. Was I suddenly so determined to cut her out of my life because she'd hurt me and broken our marriage vows, or because I had someone better? Since we were still married, wasn't I just as bad as she was? Obviously, I started dating before I even filed for divorce. I didn't initiate anything, but I kept doing it anyway. I guess it all came down to timing. Dana had been cheating on me for over a month. In my mind, the moment she spread her legs for Chuck Connor, our marriage was over, so at least for me, it was well within my rights to seek happiness elsewhere. As far as children go, if Dana was pregnant, we would have done a DNA test. If it had been my child, I would have paid child support and been involved in his life. But with Dana, it was over. After what she did, there was no going back. I drove around the city much longer than I needed to. I enjoyed sitting in the car, but eventually, I had to get home. Naturally, Dana was still awake. "Ready, Daddy?" she asked. "No," I answered honestly. "Dana, our problems are much more serious than you realize. You treating me and Sasha like crap for almost 2 months and then deciding everything was fine is not okay with me. I don't see how having another baby is going to improve an already shitty situation." She looked genuinely hurt. "But, Luke, I love you," she said. "I love you too, Dana," I said, and I meant it, but I don't think that can be fixed overnight. She looked really hurt. "Don't worry, Dana," I said. "It doesn't mean you're already pregnant. We haven't had sex in weeks, so don't worry about it." "That's probably why I'm so horny," she said. "I miss you." She put her arm around me and ran her hand over my crotch. "Dana, that's not going to happen. Now, get away from me." I snapped at her, walked away to the bedroom, and left her there crying. The next morning, all the tension in me was gone. Dana was still in the living room. She looked awful. I showered, got dressed, and went to work. After work, I changed my clothes in the office, picked up Sasha, and went to practice. There, as usual, children and parents were gathered. I noticed a few women looking at me. Some of them were married but still staring. Maybe there was something in the goddamn water, married women going after other people's men seemed to be an epidemic. "Hey you," Gianna said, "remember, I'm first in line." She ran her hands around my waist in a friendly but intimate manner. There was nothing inappropriate about it. It wasn't even a hug. But it was familiar enough to let the women present know that she was claiming me. We did the same group run as last time, but increased the pace a bit, just to the point where all the kids could keep it up. But some were uncomfortable. Those who could easily keep up the pace would probably become members of our track and field team. The rest would stay with the club until they were ready to move up to a higher level. After practice, most of the kids were tired and couldn't wait to get into their parents' waiting cars. Of course, most of the dads wanted to stay and groom Gianna for as long as possible. But in the end, it was just the two of us and Beth. Beth's mom didn't pick her up. She spent the night with Sasha. We walked to our cars and drove to the picnic area. Sasha and Beth sat on a bench playing games and watching videos on my iPad while John and I set up the food. Then the magic began. We spread a blanket and sat down on it. For a long time, we just stared at each other. There was a look in her eyes that I had never seen in Dana's before. I don't know how to describe it, maybe longing mixed with despair and a little bit of hope, and it was all directed at me. "Too soon," she said. Then she nodded her head toward the girls, but hold that thought. We talked about our life and what we want out of it. We talked about dreams and why some things are non-negotiable. Among them were faithfulness, honesty, and trust. I asked her why no man in his right mind would cheat on her, and she told me that most of the guys she dated only saw her for her looks. Once they got used to her looks, she became just another woman to them, and there was always someone prettier. So what she was really looking for was a man who would love her for her soul, not her looks. She loved her job very much, but her heart was really in a simple matter. She just wanted to be someone's wife and mother. We also talked about what I wanted. My needs turned out to be remarkably similar. The girls came over for a snack a few times and ended up just sitting down on the blanket with us. "Daddy, is Miss Marshall your girlfriend now?" Sasha asked. "I think so," Beth said, "but maybe they're just friends because they don't kiss. My mom has 3 boyfriends, and they all kiss her all the time." "Well, I guess we should go home," I said. "I'll see you at practice on Thursday, Gianna." As she stood up, I said, "You should follow me home," I said. "It's time to move on." "What exactly?" she asked. "Divorce and the rest of life," I smiled. We loaded the kids into Gianna's Jeep and drove to my house. On the way, I called Chuck. He was on his way home, which meant Dana had to be on his way too. "Chuck, this is Lucas McCain," I said cheerfully. "Do I know you?" he asked. I could hear the tension in his voice. I was sure he knew who I was. "We don't need to play any games, Chuck," I said. "You've been entertaining my wife, Dana, for about 2 months now, so we should be old friends considering what we've shared." "It was her idea," he said quickly, his voice turned into a whimper. "Chuck, I don't care whose idea it was. I just think it's time for us as adults to sit down and discuss our options. So unless you want me to visit your wife and discuss all this with her, you'd better come over to my house right now. I'll be home in about 10 minutes. If the drive takes you longer than 15 minutes, I'll visit you at home." Dana got home before we did. I saw her car as we pulled up. As soon as Gianna's Jeep stopped moving, the 2 girls got out of it and ran toward the house. I stayed behind to talk to Gianna. This should be interesting. I told her, "Luke, don't do anything crazy," she said. She climbed onto the hood of my car and pulled me to her. "Trust me," I said. "I'm not planning anything stupid. I have nothing against Chuck. He's not the one who betrayed me, Dana is. And all I want from her is a divorce so I can move on with my life. That should go very easily." "Well, you forgot something," she said. Then she leaned over and kissed me for one very long moment. The world stopped spinning, time stopped, and everything around me ceased to matter. The only thing that broke the spell was the scream of Dana running toward us from the house. "What are you doing?" Dana shouted. "Moving on," I said cheerfully. Continue what? Dana hissed. I held up my hand to warn her. Oh, good, Chuck's here, I said as he pulled into our driveway. Chuck got out of the car and almost stumbled as he looked at Gianna. He couldn't take his eyes off her. I gave her another hug, and she got in her car and pulled out of the driveway. My God, what a beautiful woman, Chuck said. Dana just sat there, growing paler by the second. What are you doing here, Chuck? She snapped back. Did I forget something at the office? I've invited Chuck over to my place, I said. Let's go inside where we can talk in peace. We entered the house and ended up in my living room. Who was that woman? Chuck asked as soon as he sat down. My plan to remain calm and reasonable suddenly went out the window. Chuck was 3 inches taller than me and weighed about 20 pounds more, but it didn't matter. I hit him as hard as I could. His nose flared, and he fell backward so hard he knocked over a chair. He got up, felt his nose, saw the blood, and stared at me. He tried to get up, but I kicked him in the chest, and he fell back down again. Why did you hit me? He shouted. Because I called you here so we could talk, I hissed. You're a real piece of work, Chuck. You're already married, and you keep going around trying to entertain other people's wives. You've already ruined my marriage to Dana, but before we could talk about it, you're sniffing around sounding like you're interested in Gianna. I glared back at him, and he backed away. You wanted Dana, you got her. But Gianna is off limits. If you ever look at her again, I swear I'll kill you. She has a lot more common sense than Dana, but just the thought of you looking at her pisses me off, I said. Chuck, I have nothing against you. It wasn't you who betrayed me, it was my wife. If I should be mad at anyone, it's her. But I'm not mad at anyone. In fact, I'm happy Dana is yours. Take her and live happily ever after. Are you kidding? He said. I don't need Dana. I already have a wife, and she's better looking. It was just sex, and not even good sex. I just like those big old tits. The rest of her is worthless. Believe me, if she wasn't so easy to get, I wouldn't bother. You're a jerk, Dana yelled. I don't want you either. That's why I broke up with you the other day. I was starting to think Luke knew something was going on, and you weren't worth my marriage. Then why did you call me today? Chuck snarled. Because Luke hasn't slept with me in over a week, she said. You guys can decide that when you get back to Chuck's or wherever you're going, I said. What are you talking about, Luke? Dana asked, fear suddenly replacing the anger in her voice. I already told you that you two have been continuing your relationship for over a month now. Whatever it is, it doesn't have to end. I hope you two will be very happy together. I really think so. If all 3 of us take on packing her stuff, you can be out of here in 20 minutes too. Or you can just pack some of her stuff and come back tomorrow for the rest while I'm at work, I said. They both looked at me like I had 3 heads. Confusion was written all over their faces, and Chuck's face was hard to read as his nose and cheek swelled. I'm not taking her anywhere, he said. Oh, yes, she is, Chuck, I said. I don't care where you take her, but she's yours now. You can move her in with your wife and kid or pay for her motel room or buy her an apartment. But if you don't want to lose your marriage tonight, you have to do something. Luke, Dana said slowly. I swear to you that I love only you. Chuck was just a mistake. It was never about love. He just caught me when I was feeling old and vulnerable. He really flattered me and made me feel better. You know how self-conscious I've always been about my height and figure. I saw tears running down her cheeks. Please give me another chance. I know it was a terrible thing to do, but women need to know that they are attractive and that they are still capable of turning a man on. Dana, have I ever done anything to make you feel unattractive? I always told you that I wanted us to grow old together. You and I had more than just looks and sex. I really loved you. You didn't just cheat on me, you cheated on our daughter, all of our memories, the vows we made to each other, and all of our dreams for the future. You've treated us like crap for the last 2 months, But it's over now, I said calmly. What about that girl you just kissed? She snarled. No, Dana, it's different, I said. That was the first time I kissed her. We hadn't had sex yet, and I only met her because of your lies. What lies? Dana asked. Gi is Sasha's teacher, I said. If you'd actually been going to parent-teacher conferences for the past 2 months, I never would have met her. Here's how it's going to work, I continued. Tomorrow, my lawyer will serve you with the divorce papers she has prepared. 2 sets. Which set we file is your choice, Dana. Either you sign the nice ones that list irreconcilable differences as the reason for divorce, or we'll go the hard way. As far as the paperwork goes, we'll split all the bills 50-50ths. I get to keep the house since my parents own it, and you can't take it anyway. We have joint custody of Sasha, she will live with me, and you will visit her as often as you want. Luke, I don't want a divorce, please, she begged. I'll do anything. I just want another chance. You can entertain this girl a few times to get your revenge, and then we'll just move on and get over it. You and Chuck just had sex, right? I asked. Both of them nodded quickly. Well, things with Gianna are much more than that, I said. As soon as I'm free of you, I'll marry her. Why don't you two discuss it after I leave? Chuck said. Because she's coming with you, Chuck, I snapped back. Either you take her with you, or your marriage will be broken up before you even get home. I know you're hurting, Luke, Dana said. I'm going to go and stay with Mom for a few days until you calm down, and then we can talk. Dana, you're a grown woman, do whatever you want, as long as it involves getting out of here, I said. I then went to the kitchen to get something to drink. The next few weeks were interesting. I focused on spoiling my daughter and getting to know Gianna better. We did various things together, but we didn't have sex. We saved that for our wedding night. Dana called me at work and at home several times a day. I didn't answer any of her calls or return any of her calls, but I let her take Sasha whenever she wanted. I didn't want to stop her from spending time with our daughter. Her mother and father also called me to see if I could take her back. They told me that it was a crime to break up a family over one stupid mistake that Dana would regret for the rest of her life. Dana has the right to raise her daughter and live a happy life, I told them. But I have a right to a happy life too, and I can't be happy with a woman who cheated on me, especially not with one who did it for over a month and was probably pregnant with someone else's child. Dana went to Gianna at school and begged her to let us give it another try. Incredible. They sat down and talked about it. Gianna told her about how her first marriage had broken up and what it was like to do your best for someone and they cheat on you for no reason. I think that gave Dana an idea of what I was going through. I think what hit Dana the hardest was when she came into the house to talk to me and saw Gianna and I sitting together on our long porch swing. Gianna sat outlining her papers, and I dozed off with my head in her lap. Sasha sat on the front step with her phone glued to her head, chatting animatedly as all teenagers do, about some TV show. We looked like a family that loves each other and is very comfortable being together. And then it hit me, what she had thrown away. She started crying as she looked at us. I was asleep, so I didn't see it, but Gianna woke me up, kissing me and pointing to Dana's receding back. Talk to her, Gianna said. I got up and caught Dana before she got into the car. Dana, did you need to see me for some reason? I asked. I tried really hard, but it was hard for me to pretend to care. Why haven't you sent the papers back yet? She snorted. You know you're doing everything wrong. What am I doing wrong? I asked, puzzled by her statement. I've talked to a few of my friends who were divorced, she said. You had to get mad at me and fight over me. Then we were supposed to argue about everything, including custody of Sasha. Then you were supposed to move out and live in a shitty little apartment. You're supposed to be miserable and alone. And then we're supposed to work on getting back together with the clear realization that I love you, but you're not enough for me, so every once in a while I'll have a lover and you won't know about it. Or you'll pretend you don't know because you don't want us to go through the pain of almost losing each other again. Maybe you'll have a lover too, but it has to be just sex. Now she was crying. Chuck was just a sex Luke. He wasn't as good as you. I guess I just wanted someone to make me feel gross and just entertain me like when I was younger. I was tired of feeling old. For a while, I had it all. I had it for the rough and tumble stuff. Then in the last few weeks, you stopped sleeping with me, and I noticed it and got annoyed, she said. I knew it was wrong, and I stopped it, but you had already stopped having sex with me, and I was getting desperate, so I called them again. When I saw you come home with GI that first time, I was furious. Then when I calmed down, I realized that maybe it could be good for me. I thought that if you had sex with her, then when it was over, we would be even, and I could get you back, she said. I visited her at school last week and talked to her about it, and she told me a lot of interesting things. Not only about you guys, but also about herself. That's when I realized that I was really in danger, that it wasn't an act. She really loves you, probably as much as I do. She will never give up on you, so I decided that my only hope was to turn to you. We have been together for 16 years and married for 14 of those years. We have a child together, and until the last 2 months, we were happy. That has to mean something. I'm not going to give up without a fight. Then I came to talk to you about it today and see if we could work something out. I wanted you to give up on the divorce. In exchange for that, I would have given you 2 months with her, and then we would have rebuilt our marriage and our family. But now I realize you'll never go for it. You love her too, and you're happy. My daughter even follows her around. You look like the family we never were. Tears flowed freely down her cheeks. I really screwed up. It wasn't supposed to be like that at all. Chuck never loved me. He was just using me. I found out he's having fun with one of the secretaries now. Everyone else at work falls into 2 categories. The nice people who are friendly but serious about work want nothing to do with me, and all the scrappy guys, married or single, think they have the right to just put me in a corner and try to empathize with me because I'm such a... I live in an apartment with my parents and sleep on their goddamn couch. I'm the laughingstock of all our old friends. Remember Sheila? Her husband Bert told her she should have an affair like me so he could get promoted like you. Half the wives in town are afraid to even think about having an affair on the side because their husbands might be the next you. Every time I call Sasha, she asks me what I want. When I answer that I just want to spend time with her, she asks why. I lost my husband, my best friend, my lover, my daughter, my home, my marriage, my future, and the man I wanted to grow old with because of a stupid affair. Chuck came out of that situation free and clear. He didn't lose a damn thing. You and Sasha seem to have gotten better, and the people in town have a lot to talk and laugh about. I'm the only one who got hurt, she cried. Is there really no way to fix this? She asked. I'm sorry, Dana, I said. You made a lot of remarks. Of course, you missed even more. For example, it doesn't matter what people told you was going to happen. Every situation is different. You were never going to get the house because it was in my family before I even met you. I never got mad at Chuck or fought for you because when we got married, you were mine. The only person who had to fight for you was Chuck. He should have fought to take you away from me. But once you cheated on me, I didn't want you anymore, so there was nothing to fight for. I broke Chuck's face because he was looking at John. She's the one I want. But don't worry about Chuck, he'll get his, and then another, and another. As for how people treat you, you kind of get what you deserve. I was just as hurt as you were when I found out what you were doing to old Chuck, only I didn't do anything to deserve it. Speaking of the things you lost, you didn't so much lose them as throw them away, and they were just picked up by someone who seems to appreciate them a lot more than you do. I paused and looked at her, and finally, sometimes when you break something, it just can't be fixed, Dana. The best thing you can do is move on and not make the same mistakes. It doesn't matter if you love someone for 14 years or 14 seconds, when you rip their heart out, it hurts like hell. And it doesn't matter if you thought it was going to be a fling or a long-term romance. When you break your promises to the people you love, you risk losing that love. Dana, I know this is hard for you, but especially with Sasha, you are her mother and always will be. I will never try to stop you from seeing her, and you are always welcome to come visit us anytime. You can have dinner with us or spend the holidays with us. G won't mind, but we'll never get the chance again. Dana signed the papers, and our divorce was finalized. I then sued Chuck Connors for the emotional suffering he put me and my daughter through. I also sued the company he and Dana worked for. Both Dana and Chuck were fired. Chuck's wife outed him, and he eventually ran away from her. We never heard from Chuck again. Dana ended up living with her parents. She rarely left the house and became a recluse. My daughter Sasha visited her often, and they were never as close as Sasha and John, but they were still better off than before. I guess I never got over how Dana had hurt me, so I never trusted her again. And even though John more than healed my broken heart and gave me so much love that I never looked back, I could never bring myself to forgive Dana. Dana and G had become friends over the years, and John was one of the few people who could get Dana out of the house. It took 20 years and a very tragic set of circumstances for me to be able to spend any time with Dana. Sasha grew up, got married, and had a family of her own. I spent 20 wonderful, loving years with G. We had no children, but that didn't matter because John loved Sasha as if she were her own. One morning, I was shocked to wake up and find John cold and motionless beside me. Later, it turned out that she had suffered a cerebral hemorrhage during her sleep. She died with a smile on her face, hugging me. All the doctors swore that she died instantly and felt no pain. I became withdrawn, and for a long time, I did not talk to anyone or go out. For a long time, Sasha stayed with me, about 6 weeks, but in the end, she couldn't convince me to go home to her and her family. Hell, I was 55, still young and healthy, but I just couldn't bring myself to do anything. Without John's smile, life seemed meaningless. I drank too much and ate too little. For the first 2 days after my daughter came home to her family, I promised her that I would call her every day and take care of myself and come visit her if I was really worried. But I didn't do any of that. The 3rd day after my daughter left me, everything changed. I woke up to the smell of bacon cooking. Since I hadn't eaten in days, the smell was intoxicating. I wanted bacon like I had never wanted bacon before. I got up and staggered to the kitchen. "What the hell are you doing here?" I growled. "Our daughter made me promise to take care of you before you left. In fact, she was the second of your women to ask me to do so. John always told me that if anything happened to her, she expected me to get back into your life, and here I am. What if I don't want you back in my life?" I asked. "Why don't you? Just get out of here, but leave the bacon?" "No," she answered simply. "What do you mean, no?" I asked. "Luke, I know you still hate me," she said. "I really messed things up. I betrayed you with a man who cheated on his own wife with me, not because he loved me, but because he wanted to use me for sex. I gave up the love of my life to get some guy. I lost you, our daughter, and the beautiful life I should have had." She cried a little. "You know, I've been going a little crazy. I've been in therapy, but it didn't help. I was bitter and angry for a long time. Then I made a new friend. She helped me realize that even though I made probably the biggest mistake of my life, I wasn't done with my life. My life was supposed to go on. I had to pick myself up and move forward. After a while, she made me start dating again. These dates I went on from time to time were usually disastrous. At first, it was because I realized that guys didn't want a serious relationship with me. They just saw a good figure and wanted to have sex with me. I'd been there before, and that mistake had cost me my happiness, so I wasn't going to put up with it again. Later on, I dated some really nice guys, one of whom wanted to marry me. But Luke, I couldn't do it. My friend, who I'm sure you know, his name is Gianna, told me that the reason I couldn't commit to any of them was that I still love you. She and I cried at the tragedy of the whole situation. It was sad for both of us. I cried because my stupidity had cost me my love and my life with the only man I'd ever truly loved. She cried because she really was my friend. She cared about me and felt my pain, but there was no way she would have given you up. She loved you too much to do that or even separate you. She finally told me that if anything happened to her, I would have to take care of you and then maybe I could get you back. I still didn't want to even look at Dana. The first few days were horrible. Dana came to the house every day. She threw away all my alcoholic beverages, she cleaned the house, cooked my meals, and even made me shave and clean myself up. She didn't stay long at first, but as time went on, the visits became longer and longer. After a month or so, I just got used to her presence. After 2 months, she stopped coming home. She just slept in the guest room. She would clean the house and do whatever she could to make my life better and then go back to her room. Of course, there were a few incidents. I'd walk into the bathroom and see her in there, or I'd see her coming out after a shower and catch a glimpse of her partially naked body. 3 months after Gianna died, Dana made me wash the car. Of course, I was still driving the Mustang. I had 4 of them now. All these years later, I just couldn't bring myself to sell them or trade them in. Why do I have to wash the car? I snapped back at her. Luke, tomorrow will be 3 months since Gianna died. I know it hurts, but you haven't been to her grave since the funeral. This is another big step in you coming to terms with it. It's not going to be easy. It's going to hurt like hell, but you have to do it to move on with your life. She will always be a part of you, and you will always remember her, but you have many years ahead of you before you join her in heaven, she said. It's a long way off, so you'll have to accept it and move on. I'll probably be dead before you see her again. Of course, I'll probably go to hell. Hell should have a special place for those who cheat on the love of their life, she said. Just imagine you and Gianna sitting on a cloud wearing wings and playing harps while I fry my ass off below, she said with a hint of a smile. Don't worry, I smiled back. If that happened, I'd piss on you to cool you off. It was a big breakthrough for us. After that, we started talking more and doing things together. It wasn't romantic, it was more like we were just good friends. But we were both okay with that. It was over a year before we ended up in the same bed. It was her birthday, and I had forgotten about it when a card from our daughter came in the mail and reminded me of it. I felt terrible. I was going to rush to the store and try to buy her a crappy last-minute gift, but she told me there was something better I could get her. What do you want? I asked. 1 hour tonight, fully clothed, in your bed, with your arms around me, she said nervously. It's not a gift, I said. It would mean more to me than anything else in the world, she said. I'm not asking you for sex, I just want you to hold me. So, we went to bed early that night. Dana came back into the room that had once been ours. She was wearing a long and very thick flannel robe. She snuggled next to me under the covers with the biggest smile on her face. I put my arms around her, and she sighed. Nothing happened that night except that we slept through the night because we both fell asleep. The next morning, I woke up, and she relaxed me. We got out of bed awkwardly, but for the next few days, Dana walked around smiling. About a week later, Dana sprained her ankle, and I had to nurse her back to health. It was the least I could do after all she had done for me. Plus, we lived in the same house, and I knew neither of us wanted her to go back to the house she had gotten from her parents after they died. After the first night of her constantly calling me at night from her room, I just moved her into my room. It was easier for me to hear her that way. Her ankle was sore for a couple of weeks, and I truly believe she took advantage of that to stay in my room longer. She just seemed to enjoy having her ankle hurt. After 2 weeks of sharing a bed, Dana never returned to her own room. Neither of us broached the subject. Then, one night about a week later, in the midst of darkness, it happened. I awoke to find Dana nestled beside me. It felt inevitable. The night before had been incredible. The following morning, we both acknowledged silently that we were back together, refraining from verbalizing it out of fear of disrupting the delicate balance. She kissed me tenderly, affirming she had never ceased loving me, and I reciprocated, professing my love for her once more. Since then, we've lived in this manner. Unmarried but cohabiting, we share love and intimacy without the confines of marriage. We've witnessed how marriages often unravel, so we simply revel in each other's company. Yesterday, something amusing occurred. After another night of passion, Dana rose to prepare breakfast. We aimed to depart early as we planned to drive the Mustang to Detroit for the Woodward Dream Cruise. Just as I stepped out of the shower, I heard Dana's exclamation. "No way," she cried out. "Not this time." Following the sound of tearing paper, silence ensued. Intrigued, I entered the kitchen, curious about her abrupt reaction. I found her calmly fixing breakfast, with several envelopes scattered across the table and some torn paper scraps near the trash can. I couldn't resist peering inside to investigate. "Just junk mail," she informed me, flashing a smile. "Breakfast in 20 minutes, then we hit the road." I nodded, embracing her briefly, then seized the torn paper scraps when she wasn't looking. I retreated to the basement, piecing together the torn fragments like a puzzle. When I finally discerned the contents, I burst into laughter. It was an invitation for Dana to join the PTA. And that wraps up our tale. I hope you enjoyed it. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel for more stories like this one.